Culture Wars. Today we're going to talk about spirituality. I wanted to tap into Uncle Bobby Hemmitt's mysticism and knowledge, a great teacher. He is not my direct uncle, but in our culture, when we feel spiritually connected to people, we claim them as family. So that's just me claiming him as family, Uncle Bobby Hemmett. So I'm gonna bring some of his teachings to maybe a younger generation that don't know who he is. Um, a lot of the mysticism teachings that we see, metaphysics teachings that we see online today, man, Uncle Bobby was dropping that type of science in the early 90s, 30 years ago, you know. And I just want to tap into that. So we're going to talk about spirituality, race, religion, class, a lot of things that could be considered controversial, but we're going to do it anyway. So here we go. I'm going to start off by a little song. Been learning the guitar, so y'all could tap in with me. Permission to take my time with this one.
Oh, this is crazy. This is crazy. Oh, so crazy. Oh, so crazy. He said, come and save me. Come and save me. If you love me. If you love me. You said you love me. Said you love me. Well, now I need you. Now I need you. I really need you. I really need you. She called me crying, called me crying, and way in the distance, way in the distance. She criticized me, says I'm inconsistent, I'm inconsistent. She way in the distance, way in the distance.
Now, let me tell you another thing about the white water that a lot of people don't understand. The European is not racist to you based on he's taught racist. The European is racist to you because he can't take your energy.
I believe that.
There's a certain energy that we have in us, and when it crosses his streams, he can't take the energy, and it comes out as racism.
Yeah, I believe that.
Now let me explain how this energy is. Based on the science that we get, the white boy is a cross species of different animals plus some human DNA. And the human DNA.
Okay, so on this broadcast, I want to talk about spirituality. I see one of the comments. Let's just play that right quick. He said, "Dude, you suck. Yeah, you are crazy. You should seek medical help." I guess, bro. If it don't apply, let it fly, right? So I'm bringing you guys this broadcast because I want to talk about spirituality. And spirituality is something that has been so demonized in our current society, and we don't really understand it. a lot of people seek different religions, and the founding of this country was founded on the principle of freedom of religion, but we still judge people and we fear things that we don't understand as humans. Now, one thing I want to discuss is, why is the world so chaotic, right? And how did we get here? How did we get to a place where the world is so chaotic? People fear being around one another. People fear being in a situation where they could be blamed for something that they didn't do. Humans in our modern time fear even talking to one another, you know, because it's so chaotic. And we live in this tech world today, where in this tech society that we live in, a lot of people probably in some degree lack spirituality, um and so that's what I want to talk about today. So I'm going to introduce you guys to Uncle Bobby Hemmitt. You may or may not know who he is. If you don't know who he is, allow me to introduce him. Uncle Bobby Hemmitt, and I titled this "Knowledge of Self" and Uncle Bobby Hemmitt. Uncle Bobby is not my real uncle, but in my culture and in my community, when we feel connected to someone, we claim them as family. So in the black culture in the United States, we call people cuz, bro, sis, and that's just a way of us affirming our closeness. And I want to bring some clips of Uncle Bobby because a lot of the things that he was talking about dealing with metaphysics and mysticism was taboo in his day. And I see a lot of videos online tapping into that energy, and I think that that's great. But to me, he's a master teacher. And the reason why I started this video playing the guitar is, one, I'm learning the guitar, the acoustic, and two, music is a part of spirituality, chords, notes, scales. So someone commented on my video like, dude, you suck. Yeah, you are crazy. You should seek medical help. I actually played the video to ward off. I played the song that I was playing on the guitar earlier because I want to ward off bad energy like that. People like that, I want to ward off bad energy. So it actually acted as a repellent. So without further ado, we gonna get into Uncle Bobby for a second and let him drop some knowledge on us. And I hope that this isn't offensive. It's not meant to be offensive to anyone, but you can't even say anything these days without offending someone. So without further ado, let's get into Uncle Bobby.
It says blacks don't read. They are still our slaves. We can continue to reap and profit from blacks without the effect of physical slavery. Look at the current methods of containment that they use for themselves. Ignorance, greed, and selfishness. Their ignorance is the primary weapon of containment. A great man once said, if you want to keep anything from black people, put it in a book. So that's one of our quotes. But then again, we don't know where we got it from, but you know. He said, we now live in the information age. We have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight. They have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight for freedom. Yet they refuse to read. That's what the Bible tells you. Blessed are those who read. It didn't say read the Bible. It says blessed are those who read. You see what I'm saying? But here too, because someone has told you that you shouldn't look beyond a book that is given to you, and you didn't make that choice. You don't do it, and you make an argument about it. That's savage. To have a people that say, I'm giving a book, and I don't want to look beyond a book because someone tells me not to look beyond a book. And then you make an argument about it. I'm talking about the Bible. Now I'm talking about the Quran because we've been, 60 years into that. You see what I'm saying? But at least 30 and 20 or either 10. My point here is, he who knows one book knows none. You see, now, so, it says, this is the
So let me pause it. So guys, we're living in a world today where so many people are confused Confusion is like the dominant perspective that's on the planet. I think most people are confused about so many different things. And I think that in order to alleviate a lot of the confusion, we have to learn to tap into our own energy. We have to learn to tap into our own energy. He talked about reading and how important reading is. And I know so many people will probably take that the wrong way, but the truth is, reading is very important. And reading is one of the things that separate us from other animals. If you think about it, humans, as we know, are the only species who read and write. So to not read and write is almost to be an animal to a certain degree, because we're the only species that read and write, and we can send messages to each other. We even develop different languages, and we live in a time where so many people are basically illiterate to a degree. So many people don't read. So many people don't write. And soon as you try to express yourself, there's going to be someone who is going to criticize you, or going to tell you negative things. And that's really not a reflection on you as an individual. That's a reflection on that person. And so we got to understand that. So I would tell you to read and write if you really want to tap into spirituality, even your own spirituality. Read and write. See what's inside your mind. We consume things daily. You consume thoughts, atmospheres. Right now, I'm sitting at a park, right? I'm slowing my day down. This is a part of my spirituality. The birds are chirping, you know. Now behind me, life is happening. All around me, life is happening. Families, people at school, people riding, and I lived a very fast-paced life. I have lived a very fast-paced life. Um, Working in the trucking industry, man, I go from everywhere: Chicago, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Jersey City, Miami. Like, I've been everywhere, and I live such a fast-paced life that after years of doing that, I started craving to slow things down. Right? I'm like, man, I've been rolling so fast. I've been going so hard in the trucking industry. I need to slow things down. Now, in my spirituality, I learned to enjoy things that many people might see as, not that important. For example, I like morning walks. I like having a walk. I like sobriety. I enjoy being sober. No alcohol, no marijuana, no substances, just enjoying my own vibe. That's a part of my spirituality. Um, I enjoy music a lot, learning instruments, learning different things. So knowledge, getting back to the point, knowledge is a part of spirituality. And I believe that the it's certain entities or people in positions of power who gain power by restricting our access to information. We have had our access to information restricted, and as a result, we're not as we should be, right? And I think that part of the illusion that we're in is finding a way to rise out of the fact that our information has been so condensed and restricted. Like, if you think about it, even to get a college degree, the system forces people to pay thousands of dollars. Now you got to think for a second. If the system wanted people to be educated, why would they charge people to get educated? And then what ends up happening is people don't get educated, they get trained to do a job. And then you run into bureaucracies where if you don't perform a job the way that the system says you should perform the job, you get fired. So I'm gonna play another clip of Uncle Bobby, because when he talked about reading is very important, it is so important, and the average person don't read. I mean, I'm not saying that to diss people. I'm just saying, like, according to the statistics, The average person haven't read a book in the last 3 months, right? We have more books available to us via ebooks, Kindles, smartphones, but people don't even use the smartphones constructively. People use phones destructively. Like I show you an example. Somebody comment on my video and say, "Dude, you suck. Yeah, you are crazy. You should seek mental help." You think that person that commented that was using his phone constructively? No, he was using it as a weapon of war. But I'm well versed in warfare. So it's gonna be harder for you to get me off my game because if it don't apply, let it fly. And my confidence is so high that things like that won't affect me. But it does affect a lot of people, and you have people that's so negative based in their thinking. They're such at a lowly state. They think negative thoughts, uh they when people are negative to you, and that's a part of spirituality. When people are negative to you, don't internalize it. If it's not causing you physical harm and things like that, when people are mean to you or being negative to you guys, or even if you find yourself in a situation where you responded in a way that you probably shouldn't have, you let your temper get the best of you. We're all human. you know, accept it and just move on. Don't dwell on it. And the big thing that you can do, and I learned this is very constructive, separate yourself from people who are very negative. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Someone commented on my channel, dude, I played the intro of me. I'm learning the acoustic guitar. I played the intro of me playing the guitar. And the guy commented was like, dude, you suck. Yeah, you're crazy. You should seek mental help. Now, if I let that, if I internalize that, I'll probably be, following his advice. But this guy doesn't even know me. And think about how many people criticize you, say things about you, they don't even know you. And that's one thing that the internet has enabled. It has enabled people to be terrorists to a degree, or terroristic with their words. People can say very hateful things on the internet because there's no real consequences. But don't let that get to you. Like when people are mean to you or in life, you know, the way to diffuse situations is one, stay away from people who are chronically negative, chronically uh looking for reasons to cause conflict. If you avoid conflict, it's harder for conflict to come around you. Two, if you have to be around someone or others, make sure it's constructive. My whole broadcast is constructive. What am I doing? One, I'm speaking on the knowledge and teachings of Bobby Hemmitt and how to use it in a constructive way. We're talking about spirituality. Your emotions is connected to spirituality. Music is connected to spirituality. What you eat, what you drink, all of this. And here's the thing: no one is going to be 100% because we live in a corrupted world. Our world is not as it should be. So don't allow people to get down on you or tell you negative things. And unfortunately, we live in a world where you have to work a job, you have to earn money, and people do this. But some people get so caught up in negativity that it becomes their way of life. Never allow negativity to become your way of life. And when I mean negativity, I mean in using things that could be used for bad for evil. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, don't be no fool. So we're gonna get back into Uncle Bobby Hemmett. Thank you guys for joining. If you can, I would appreciate it. If you dig in the spirituality talk, hit a like. I get views on my channel. I get comments on my channel. And believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but YouTube don't even post the comments. So sometimes when they watch the playback, the comments don't even show up. So what I like to do is from time to time, if a person comment, I show the comment on the screen just so the algorithm can't act like it didn't happen. So someone says, head up, buddy, I'm the same. I waste time on this. I appreciate it. Thank you, King. Respect. Yeah, man, and when I play this video, like, everything that the speaker says is not a reflection of what I think, but I try to expand on it and just share information. I think Uncle Bobby had good intentions, and I call him uncle not because he's my real uncle, but just I felt a certain kinship with his energy. You know what I mean? Like that's how we do where I'm from. You know, if we feel a kinship or like kindred spirits, we claim you as family. So he was talking about reading and how important reading is. Guys, it's so important to read. I can't stress that enough. But I will also say, don't read things that other people say you should read. Read things that interest you. If you like fishing, read about fishing. If you like sports, read about sports. Find something that interests you that you like to read about. That's what I do with my son. I have a 9-year-old son. What I tell my son is like, son, when you pick a book out at school, pick a book that you like, a topic that you like. And as a result, it'll be easier for us to read.
True spirituality, most people think it's evil. Just by the mere fact that you're practicing something on a higher level, and it takes a little more work than sitting down begging and praying. You see what I'm saying? And because you were trained in a tradition as a child in a religion, and they call it spiritual, you automatically think that spirituality is what you've been getting all these years, which is moral code and a little bit of inspirational ceremony to make you feel a certain way. True spirituality has very little to do with moralism, very little to do with human behavior. True spirituality is tracking the spiritual realm that is unseen and manipulating the forces to bring about results in the physical. The preacher talks about having faith in the unseen, and the only reason why you have to have faith is because you don't have education in it. You don't have gnosis, knowledge in it. So there is a difference. This is the basis of metaphysics. This is the basis of occultism. The word occult just means that which is hidden. It says blacks don't read. They are still our slaves. We can continue to reap and profit from blacks without the effect of physical slavery. Look at the current methods of containment that they use for themselves. Ignorance, greed, and selfishness. Their ignorance is the primary weapon of containment. A great man once said, if you want to keep anything from black people, put it in a book. So that's one of our quotes. But then again, we don't know where we got it from, but you know. He said, we now live in the information age. We have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight. They have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight for freedom. Yet they refuse to read. That's what the Bible tells you. Blessed are those who read. It didn't say read the Bible. It says blessed are those who read. You see what I'm saying? But here too, because someone has told you that you shouldn't look beyond a book that is given to you, and you didn't make that choice. You don't do it, and you make an argument about it. That's savage. To have a people that say, I'll give them a book, and I don't want to look beyond a book because someone tells me not to look beyond a book. And then you make an argument about it. I'm talking about the Bible. Now I'm talking about the Quran because we've been, 60 years into that.
And see, that's just the thing. Like we're living in a time where, so many people where they don't want to explore new knowledge. Like so many people, man, are so closed off to new information, and you can't blame them, because it's fear. We've been taught some destructive things, and it's hard for us to unlearn these things. It's hard for us to become one with the truth. Now, I kind of want to get into a more controversial topic. I had to stop streaming for a second from TikTok because I know once I play this TikTok, I'm gonna get a strike. So I'm gonna go into another topic in this, and just stay with me. And I know I'm going to lose some people with this one, but it's just real interesting knowledge.
Now, let me tell you another thing about the whiteboard that a lot of people don't understand. The European is not racist to you based on he's taught racist. The European is racist to you because he can't take your energy.
I believe that.
There's a certain energy that we have in us, and when it crosses his streams, he can't take the energy, and it comes out as racism.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
Now let me explain how this energy is. Based on the science that we get, the white boy is a cross species of different animals plus some human DNA. And the human DNA is what gives him 2 arms, legs, hands, eyes, and all that. Although he don't look like you. But he has several, ape, some pig, you see the white skin, some other stuff. His hair is even fur. So all the black women putting fur in their hair don't realize that ain't nothing but fur. Nobody got, the only animals that's got hair like us is revered as Christ animals, the lamb and all that type of stuff. But him, he's has fur, and all the animals have hair like him. But the point I'm trying to make is this here. Now listen to this science here on how this particular racism works based on the energy. If you go into the forest, or you go to the forest or you go to the jungle, the most strongest animal in the world, everybody will tell you that those animals are scared of you more than you are scared of it. See what I'm saying? You go, that bear is scared of you. That's what makes him attack. See what I'm saying? That's why they say stand real still and all. If he don't feel threatened, he won't attack. The animals only are threatened if they attack. You understand where I'm coming from? So this is the point I'm trying to make here. Since he's made up of animal DNA, the European, when he comes in contact with a human, that xenophobic fear automatically comes out, just like the bear does in the doggone forest, because he's got latent animal DNA. So therefore, just like the animals fear the humans, he fears the humans too, and we just so happen to be the humans. You see, we just so happen to be the humans.
So Uncle Bobby was trying to discuss in his hypothesis why racism exists, and why have the darker skinned people been so mistreated on the globe. Now, so many people have tried to answer this. People have tried to answer this with religion. People have tried to answer this with metaphysics, or just normal, just everyday psychology. So one theory that a lot of people try to go with is like, oh, they must have done something wrong for them to be in the position that they're in. They must have done something wrong, and as a result of them doing something wrong, that this is why they're in the position that they're in. This is what a lot of people tell us, is that black people on this earth have done something wrong in the past, and as a result of doing something wrong, we have been placed under a curse. That's what a lot of Israelites believe. That's what a lot of people in Christianity believe, the Mormons, different sects. Now, I'm not here to tell anyone what to believe. And that's another thing that is controversial. So many people are going to try to tell you what to believe. I'm not one of those people. You believe whatever you want to believe. It's your life. But do I think that black people, or people classified as black, are cursed because they did something wrong in the past? I would say no. So if that brings me into conflict with different religious groups, it is what it is. But I would say no. Now, let's look at the rules of cause and effect. I think that people kind of reach that synopsis on the thing because they look at cause and effect. So they say, well, to call the effect is how black people are treated worldwide, how their countries are destabilized, how, you know, how their communities look, why they've been so impoverished, while all of the brown countries are poor and don't have nuclear weapons, and all of the countries with Europeans as a majority have nuclear weapons, right? All of the countries who have nuclear weapons are countries that are European. All of the countries that don't have nuclear weapons are brown countries. Okay? So a lot of people have been looking at cause and effect and say, well, what caused this? Something must have caused this for black people to be so mistreated, right? And so, um, what has caused this? I think that we just gotta look at it for what it is. And I think Bobby was hitting on that when he was speaking about it. I think that it's difficult for people who are racist, and I'm talking, and when I say this, all white people are not racist. So don't get your panties in the bunch. All white people are not racist. However, we do live in a race-based society and a race-based world globally. So, what's the result of this? Okay, the result of this is we have work to do, and our ancestors, in their brilliance, have been fighting to get from underneath these people. So the question is, can black people in the world be at their very best and coexist on the planet with white people? I want you to think about this. Can black people be at their very best? Let's say black people were self sufficient in energy, resources, careers, jobs, everything, and didn't need Europeans for anything or people labeled as Europeans. Could they coexist with white people? And I say no. And now, where do I get that answer from? No. So, a lot of the self improvement videos that you see is the only problem I have with the motivational speakers and self improvement is you're not telling them the full truth, because we all could tap into the energy, and the energy would tell us, and history would tell us, whenever we have been at our very best, they have still worked to destabilize us. Okay, think about this right now. What is the current regime saying about the Middle East? What are they saying about Iran? They're saying that they essentially, what they're saying is they do not want Iran to be at their very best. They're not going to allow them to build nuclear weapons. Why? Because then they would be a threat. Why? Because they would be at their very best. They would be able to defend themselves. So the problem with a lot of the motivational speakers, which is a form of spirituality, the problem that they have is that you can't be on the very best and coexist with people who want to be supreme over you. Black people are not allowed, and brown people are not allowed to exist independent of the white supremacists. Now, this is either true or it's false. Now, where's the basis for this? Well, a lot of people ask questions, why are black people so mistreated? And the conclusion that most people have come to is that black people are mistreated the most because genetically they are adversaries to whites. If white and black mix, white disappears. So that's a genetic component. That's where people like Dr. Francis Chris Wessling have talked about. Bobby spoke on it from a spiritual perspective. He says spiritually you can't coexist with this person because your energy is so strong. That's really the same vein, just saying it in a different way and a slightly different perspective. Our energy is so strong, according to Bobby, that we can't coexist with races, and they can't coexist with us. So, how have they been able to maintain power? Through violence and warfare. They have been able to maintain control through violence and warfare. Now, when I say this, that's not to say that prior to their world domination, that violence didn't exist, that slavery didn't exist, that warfare didn't exist. But I do think to some degree, one of the lies that have been told is that war on the planet is the norm. I have to disagree with that. I think it's our current norm because the people who live are at war with nature. The people who exist today, we're at war with nature. We're burning fossil fuels. And like right now, they're talking about the war in Iran. And they're saying that if the fossil fuels dissipates or the Strait of Hormuz is closed, that the entire globe could go without electricity because we're so dependent on burning gas and these petroleum for energy, right? Even though people like Nikola Tesla tried to build an independent grid that didn't rely on petroleum, but then that put him at odds with people like John D. Rockefeller, if you know your history. So it's real deep. So I think that black people obviously are a key component to what's going on in the world because globally we're mistreated, and we don't have that same propensity of hate towards our oppressors as they have towards us. And there's no problem that you can talk about in the world without talking about racism. So someone says no. Someone come in and says no. Crabs in the barrel is also true. A black person will put you down faster or won't tell you the secrets that can make you more successful as a whole. Sounds nonsensical, but as a whole is true. Okay. And see, with comments like that, I can't argue against that because that's someone's personal experience. And that's another thing. A lot of people on the internet are so like concentrating on being correct. I don't want to be that type of person because I always want to, when people talk about race, one thing I learned is they are free to talk about their experience because no one has lived the other person's experience. But being a black person, you could relate to another black person because they created a system where all of us are mistreated based on the color of our skin. So, no, regardless of how light you were, if they stated during the one drop rule, if you had one drop, you got to understand how deep this is. You were eligible to be discriminated against. And they had these conversations way back in Europe. Now, when Christopher Columbus, the conquistadors, first came over here, they had a pope, Pope Nicholas. He wrote a decree, and they were talking. Um, Christopher Columbus, his brother, the Dominican friar, they were having conversations about what would become of the offspring. Would the offspring of the Europeans and the people in the New World, what would become of them? Because the people in the New World had not waged a war against the Catholic crown, so they couldn't call it a just war because they didn't speak the same languages. They hadn't went to war with them, and the indigenous women made babies with the conquistadors, the conquerors, the foreigners. And so they had this guy named Aguilar who was he has a statue in Mexico. He's the first European to create a Latino essentially because he was from Spain. He got shipwrecked and he made a baby with an indigenous woman, and he ended up learning the language, absorbing in the culture, and he actually fought against Christopher Columbus. And this is well documented. You can look this up, Aguilar. And he has statues in Mexico City. And this is in the 1520s. We're talking about with Hernan Cortez, excuse me, Hernan Cortez in 1521. So Christopher Columbus came in the 1490s, and Hernan Cortez came to the mainland. Christopher Columbus never came to the mainland. Hernan Cortez made it to the mainland, and then they conquered Mexico and Tenochtitlan. Uh, which is modern day Mexico City, in 1521. So, and then they named it New Spain. So New Spain, which consisted of North America and all of Latin America, was New Spain, or Nuevo España. Okay. And when they conquered this, they wanted to know, Pope Nicholas and the royal class was getting rich off of slavery, but they wanted to know, wait, with the offspring that we're making, would they be free or would they be eligible for mistreatment? And they declared that they would be slaves. So at some point you got to realize, and this is what makes racism so sick, and the system that we've been born into incorrect, is because it doesn't produce justice. You can intellectualize it, which is hard to intellectualize racism. They try to, but when you get to is it right or is it wrong, it's harder to intellectualize it because it's a straight answer. Racism is wrong. Denying people food, shelter, clothing, protection, housing based on the color of their skin is wrong. Giving people preferential treatment because of the color of their skin is wrong. And then you can end up in a society, and this is what happened to Spain. And this is all relevant to spirituality. They kicked all of the Moors, they kicked the people who practice Judaism, all of the people that practice Islam, they kicked them out of Spain. At the time, Al Andalusia, and they created the Alhambra Decree, and they stated that all of these people, if you wasn't practicing Christianity and you wasn't going to bow down to Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, you had to leave. So they left, and Spain fell. Spain eventually fell. Why? Because they kicked out the brains of the operation. And most of the castles that exist in Europe wasn't built by so-called Europeans. Now, I'm gonna play another video clip of Uncle Bobby, but I want to talk about that term European. European and white isn't the same thing. And I know that that's going to be so hard for people to understand because the way that we use words is problematic. What is a European? What does it mean to be white? And at what color do you stop being something else and start being white? This is a relevant question because you got people that, at what point does a person stop being white? At what point do they start being black? At what point do they start being brown? And this is what produces confusion because white is a part of a caste system. So going back to European, in Europe there were always people of color. Even if you go back to the coat of arms in Europe, it was always people of color on them, from Switzerland to the United Kingdom and all of these different places. Their coat of arms show, if you go to Italy and Sardinia, you will see black people on the coat of arms. And some people speculate they have different theories of why that exists. Some people, say it exists because they finally conquered the black man, that the black man was finally conquered. And another relevant question, and I think that this is where historians have racialized history. They say things like Roman Empire, Greek Empire, and what you're not understanding is that why all of the early European societies that had success started essentially in North Africa. Why didn't it start in Europe? The same with Egypt. They tried to geographically place Egypt out of Africa. And then they create terms like sub-Saharan Africa. And then let's talk about the Americas. They do the same thing with the Americas. They don't tell you about all of the pyramids in Guatemala, Honduras. They don't tell you about the pyramids in Mexico. They don't tell you about the pyramids in the United States and worldwide. They don't tell you about the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Olmecs. They don't spend a lot of time really teaching you about the indigenous people in the United States. And there's a reason for that. And they don't want you to know that people have been in the United States, been in Mexico or North America for over 20,000 years, over 100,000 years ago. And they focus on the last 500 years because that's when the so-called European or white man came into power. And here's the thing: if the Europeans or so-called Europeans being in power meant that the world would have justice, I'd be the number one advocate for it. If it meant that everybody would have food, shelter, clothing, housing, clean water, no diseases, I would be an advocate for that. But what do we see? Countries that was rich now poor. Places that had all of these wealth stolen and taken to the Vatican. Religious wars. And look how Europeans did other Europeans in Europe. The Hundred Years' Wars. Joan of Arc. You know, they even wanted to unalive Martin Luther. He had to be protected by the British king. This is history. Look it up. Cause then that's another thing. They never expected us to come up out of our slumber. They never expected us to wake up. They never and then we're living in a society where knowledge is destroyed. And that's one of the sad things. We living in a place where good is bad and bad is good. So we just gotta wake up spiritually and we gotta refrain from being so negative towards one another. Because a lot of people would think that what have happened to us, that these people are somehow naive about what they did to us. A lot of people think that these governments, these kings who rule the world, are ignorant of how they're mistreating the populace. They're not ignorant. They know what they're doing. Some people say, oh, they're like that because they just don't understand. No, they understand well. They have access to all of the information. They control what information we get and what information we're unable to get. So don't ever think that these people don't understand what they're doing to you. They have consolidated all of the information. And the information that they didn't agree with, they burned, destroyed, or hidden. They said that they burned the Library of Alexandria. Why? They burned the codices in Tenochtitlan in Mexico City that the Mayans had. They burned the codices, the books, the holy books, and then they give you a new reinterpretation of something, and then they'll give you a piece of paper and say that you have a PhD or that you're a doctor or a lawyer. And that's not to say that the information you're getting doesn't have some accuracy to it, or you're not intelligent. And that's another thing. That's not what I'm saying, because we can do a lot of great things, but in order for the European countries to produce justice on the planet, they would have to turn a new leaf, and they would have to stop being adversaries to the planet Earth. They have shown that they have been adversaries to the planet Earth because whether they like it or not, black people are a part of planet Earth. We are a part of the earth, just like a tree, just like the fish in the sea. Brown people are a natural part of the ecosystem. So to enslave, torture, kill, and then you got to think about all of most of the violence that exists wouldn't even exist if Europeans wasn't mass producing weapons and bombs. Think about that for a second. Most of the gun stores is owned by who? Most of the bombs that's been created has been created by who? Most of the fire sticks, as they used to call them, wouldn't even exist if Europeans wouldn't be building them and shipping them to impoverished communities. So yeah, you can say, and no one can feel this more than me because I lost my dad and my brother to gun violence at the hands of other brown people. So when I speak on this, I got the authority to speak on this because I lived it. I know what it's like to lose a family member. I know what it's like to have a family member taken out by gun violence for senseless reasons. But then when you start digging deeper, and I fought them for the hate that they succumb to. They got people that's so hateful they would take your life. But I'm not the only one, right? Because think about all of those kids who go to schools and pew pews. All of those people who go to school and pew pews and shoot it up. Mothers and fathers that lose their lives. I mean that lose their kids to gun violence. And not one politician, not one of these people that work for these billionaires has stepped forth and said, take their guns away. Oh, I'm an American. Right, liberty and happiness, and I get to have my guns. They only want guns because they everything that they have has come at the end of the gun. They wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for the gun. Violence is a part of their belief system. And we can't all be praying to the same God. Think about this. If we were all really praying to the same God, and then you turn around and enslave the man that was just praying next to you, you sell his kids away. You create laws and injunctions to where he can't own a business. You sabotage him. You put your brother in slavery. And one thing I do like about the Bible, even though I think it's just a brilliant piece of literature, is that in Genesis chapter 3 or 4, Abel slays his brother. Think about this: the first group of people in the story, a brother slayed his other brother. Cain slayed Abel. And why did he slay Abel? If you remember the chapter and you read it, because of jealousy. He was jealous of his brother, so he slayed him. Is this not what's happening to us? You can't draw a parallel? Or even Jacob being sold into slavery by his brothers. The Bible is full of family drama. Brothers being sold into slavery. Brothers, Cain and Abel. Jacob, his brothers. You see these things in the Bible. And these people are technically, if we're part of the same human family, are brothers, sisters. And what are they doing? Enslaving us. And this is the problem where having higher education is the problem. You can get as much education as you want to get. It's not going to co- overcorrect 400 years of slavery. 500 years of slavery. It's just you can get as much education as you want to get. 500 years beats however much time you spent in school. And so when we get on the topic of reparations, I think that one of the things that we do need the money, but we need our minds back. We need restoration. We need to be restored. And when I look at like the other day I was listening to the 1958 and the 1960 Newport Jazz Festival. And one thing that shocked me as I'm watching the Newport Jazz Festival of the 50s and 60s, um, I was watching it and I said to myself, I said, wow, it's white people and black people dancing together in the audience. And I'm thinking to myself, and at the same time, I'm like, man, these people they'll dance with you, laugh and talk with you, and then go to the legislature and pass laws to enslave you. Go into the jury room and file injunctions to take your life away. The same people you was just laughing and talking with. So I believe that they do play as though they're our friends, and then every chance they get, they'll go to the legislative branch and pass injunctions to slay us. They'll come march with us, and then what do they do after they march with us? These same people are never on the jury when we need them. They're never voting against their oppressors. They are never turned against their brothers who are racist and doing things against us. And they'll always try to minimize it. So it's hard to be an ally. The only ally I can claim is like, hey, if you're not against That's why I asked him, are you a white supremacist? Are you a suspected white supremacist? Let me know from the jump. Are you or anyone that you know a white supremacist? Do you believe, based on the color of your skin, that you deserve more resources and more privilege than people who do not have the color of your skin? And see, this is how we got to start dealing with people. And then what I hate too and dislike strongly is they have put themselves in positions of power so you can't even get anything of value without going through them. And then after colonizing everything, they will tell us to stand on our own 2 feet after you just took all of our land. After you then burned down our communities and put freeways through our communities when you enslaved our grandparents. And so I don't think that they understand that for us, it's personal. For them, it could be just business, the cost of doing business. But for us, it's personal. But ultimately, I think that the universe has a way of correcting things. If there is a higher power, I think that in due time, justice will be served. Now, if there's not a higher power, okay, if there is a higher power, I think that the higher power will correct things. If there's not a higher power, what do I say about that? Well, then the law of cause and effect will come into play. Because if we look around, think about this. They have done all of these things, and yet they're still struggling. They have done all of these things, and their birth rates are dropping. They have done all of these things to us, and their women are divorcing them at extremely high rates. They can't even keep their families together after enslaving us, after mistreating us. They protect plantation homes, Confederate sites. They don't have any heroes. All of their heroes are child rapists and fluctuators against kids. They protecting the people on the Epstein list. It doesn't surprise us, but I'm surprised that you're surprised.
You see, so he fears us too on that particular level. True spirituality, most people think is evil. Just by the mere fact that you're practicing something on a higher level, and it takes a little more work than sitting down begging and praying. You see what I'm saying? And because you were trained in a tradition as a child in a religion and they call it spiritual, you automatically think that spirituality is what you've been getting all these years, which is moral code and a little bit of inspirational ceremony to make you feel a certain way. True spirituality has very little to do with moralism, very little to do with human behavior. True spirituality is tracking the spiritual realm that is unseen and manipulating the forces to bring about results in the physical. The preacher talks about having faith in the unseen, and the only reason why you have to have faith is because you don't have education in it. You don't have gnosis, knowledge in it. So there is a difference. This is the basis of metaphysics. This is the basis of occultism. The word occult just means that which is hidden.
And think about how much has been hidden from us. They burned down the Library of Alexandria. Who is they? They know who did it. Just know it was burned down. But we do know in the last 500 years, these people have went around the globe. Think about this from a strategic perspective. I believe that the powers that be plan things out for centuries. You're at war with a immortal with an immortal enemy. Like this, like the war is unending. Because if you look at 2026, you look at 1826 and 1826. Mexico was fighting Spain for independence. You look up in 2026, same countries are begging for reparations from their captives. What has really changed, right? And then here's the thing, people, they really want justice, but most people know that they're not going to get justice. So what do they settle for? Comfort. I can't get justice. I really want justice, but I settle for comfort instead. So people turn their attentions into wealth or money instead of justice. But the problem with that is you can be rich and still be a slave. You can be comfortable and still be a slave. And they have turned society into a prison, and they don't like us talking about this. And so every time that, and what the problem is, every time we talk about this, they would like to ignore it. Think about this. If our ancestors were not enslaved, what would our reality look like? If all of the work that we did was well compensated for, what would our society look like? You wouldn't even have capitalism in the same vein. You wouldn't, a lot of the stuff that we have today wouldn't even exist in the same way. So you have a group of people who are parasitic towards another group of people. And that's the only way that you can really call it, is like these people are parasites. They're parasitic, and they don't want any person of color to talk about this. But no matter if you're a conservative or you're on the left or whatever you claim to be, since we all have the same reality, a global system of racism that exists, and it is global, there's no place you can go on the planet where racism doesn't exist. You can't go to China, you can't go to Brazil, you can't go to Africa, you can't go to South Asia. They have successfully colonized the entire planet. So that means it's up to us to destroy racism. It's up to us to destroy racism. We got to chain it down. We got to destroy it. We got to make sure it doesn't exist anymore. And that's up to us. But in order to do that, you're going to have to cast away your view of them as deities. They can no longer, you can't view them as gods. And that's essentially what they have placed themselves as. They have made themselves to believe that they're God. So much so that they have painted the image of Christ as themselves. Meanwhile, they are enslaving and subjugating the whole planet. It would be something if you paint yourself as God, but then you are helping people. You're doing things to make the planet better, but instead you are, you know, just causing havoc. I mean, I want you guys to look up the video 1945. Harriet Truman drops a bomb on Hiroshima. And just think about this. Like, these people dropped an atomic bomb on another country. So when people say they won't drop a nuclear bomb, I'm like, do you not know who you're dealing with? These people would definitely drop an atomic bomb, you know? And so this goes back into reading. You gotta
If
read.
blacks don't read, they are still our slaves. We can continue to reap and profit from blacks without the effect of physical slavery. Look at the current methods of containment that they use for themselves. Ignorance, greed, and selfishness. Their ignorance is the primary weapon of containment. A great man once said, if you want to keep anything from black people, put it in a book. So that's one of our quotes. But then again, we don't know where we got it from, but you know. He said, we now live in the information age. We have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight. They have gained the opportunity to read any book on any subjects through the effects of their fight for freedom. Yet they refuse to read. That's what the Bible tells you. Blessed are those who read. It didn't say read the Bible. It says blessed are those who read. You see what I'm saying? But so here too, because someone has told you that you shouldn't look beyond a book that is given to you, and you didn't make that choice. You don't do it, and you make an argument about it. That's savage. To have a people that say, I'm giving a book, and I don't want to look beyond a book because someone tells me not to look beyond a book. And then you make an argument about it. I'm talking about the Bible. Now I'm talking about the Quran because we've been, 60 years into that. You see what I'm saying? But at least 30 and 20 or either 10. My point here is, he who knows one book knows none. You see, now, so, it says, this is the information age. Okay, numerous books readily available at Borders, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon.com, not to mention their own black bookstores, provide a solid blueprint to reach economic equality, which should have been their fight all along, but few read constantly, if at all. True spirituality, most people think is evil. Just by the mere fact that you're practicing something on a higher level, and it takes a little more work than sitting down begging and praying. You see what I'm saying? And because you were trained in a tradition as a child in a religion, and they call it spiritual, you automatically think that spirituality is what you've been getting all these years, which is moral code and a little bit of inspirational ceremony to make you feel a certain way. True spirituality has very little to do with moralism, very little to do with human behavior. True spirituality is tracking the spiritual realm that is unseen and manipulating the forces to bring about results in the physical. The preacher talks about... Let me tell you another thing about the white order that a lot of people don't understand. The European is not racist to you based on he's taught racist. The European is racist to you because he can't take your energy.
I believe that.
There's a certain energy that we have in us, and when it crosses his streams, he can't take the energy, and it comes out as racism.
Yeah, I believe that.
Now let me explain how this energy is. Based on the science that we get, the white boy is a cross species of different animals plus some human DNA. And the human DNA is what gives him 2 arms, legs, hands, eyes, and all that. Although he don't look like you. But he has several, ape, some pig, you see the white skin, some other stuff. His hair is even fur. So all the black women putting fur in their hair don't realize that ain't nothing but fur. Nobody got, the only animals that's got hair like us is revered as Christ animals, the lamb and all that type of stuff. But him, he has fur, and all the animals have hair like him. But the point I'm trying to make is this here. Now listen to this science here on how this particular racism works based on the energy. If you go into the forest or if you go to the forest or you go to the jungle, the most strongest animal in the world, everybody will tell you that those animals are scared of you more than you are scared of it. See what I'm saying? You go, that bear is scared of you. That's what makes him attack. See what I'm saying? That's why they say stand real still and all. If he don't feel threatened, he won't attack. The animals only are threatened if they attack. You understand where I'm coming from? So this is the point I'm trying to make here. Since he's made up of animal DNA, the European, when he comes in contact with a human, that xenophobic fear automatically comes out, just like the bear does in the doggone forest, because he's got latent animal DNA. So therefore, just like the animals fear the humans, he fears the humans too, and we just so happen to be the humans. You see. We just so happen to be the humans.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so he fears us too on that particular level.
Mm-hmm.
You see.
Yeah, and you know it's truth to that. You know it's some truth to that because let's look at this for a second. Right? Let's look at this. So you know it's truth to it because think about the picture at the top. You know, they running up on people, asking them for identification. It's a very strange reality. Even if you want to side with it because you're gonna get some type of benefit, like this is a cop car that's right here. He just ran the red light in front of me. Um, they just live in a very militaristic, adversarial mentality with the planet. Like they're at war with the planet. Like it just got to be uncomfortable to live like that. Constantly beefing with everybody, at war with everybody because they don't have any peace. So it doesn't matter how many continents they conquer, how much gold they have, how many people they subdue. They're always going to be the fake god. They're not. It's not real because it's not based on anything real. You destroying entire ecosystems, the oceans, the climate. Look what. And one thing I had to notice about people in the dominant society, I think this what separates us from them, is that you notice they never take responsibility for anything that they do. Something could go horribly wrong. I never seen a group of people that want to be in control so bad, but don't take any responsibility for anything bad that happens under their watch. They blame everyone else. Right now, instead of taking responsibility for what's going on in the United States, they're blaming immigrants. They're blaming foreigners. The question is, who let them in? You get what I'm saying? They don't take responsibility. The Democrats are the majority in the House in the United States. A few years ago, they blame the Republicans. The Republicans right now are the majority. They blame some Democrats. Come on, man. Y'all don't see the game? They never take responsibility for their actions. Ever. They spend they spend so much time not taking responsibility for anything that they do. So of course, that's a part of the game. Is like I do stuff and then after I do it, I don't take any responsibility for it. So, that's just how they go. But I noticed on the internet has opened people classified as white to the fact that no matter where they look, they're forced to hear about racism. So, like in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, you didn't have the internet. So, like, if you wanted to, you could possibly create your own algorithm, so to speak, where you didn't have to hear about the plight of others in the world that
Permission to take my time with this one. Oh, this is crazy. This is crazy. Oh, so crazy. Oh, so crazy. He said, come and save me. Come and save me. If you love me. If you love me. You said you love me. Said you love me. Well, now I need you. Now I need you. I really need you. I really need you. She called me crying, and playing the distance, playing the distance. She criticized me, says I'm inconsistent, I'm inconsistent. She playing the distance, playing the distance. Permission to take my time with this one.